So you're moving out of town and you've got a significant board game collection that you want to keep in great shape. However, fear grips you as you consider the carelessness of movers. Large boxes crushing the top of your games, and you begin to panic. Well, have no fear. While we can't stop your friend from going Hulk Hogan on your games, we can certainly give you some tips on how to survive a move across country with board games. Hey, this is JT and welcome to G Club. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button to continue to see more board game related content such as interviews or board game reviews. According to G Club scientists, the top 5 most stressful events in your life include the death of a loved one, divorce, major illness, moving a board game collection, and playing a match of subterfuge. We recently moved from Northern California to North Carolina, and we're going to show you how we did it. Well, maybe just the part about the board game collection, because, do we really need to talk about how I wrapped my wife's Starbucks mug collection in toilet paper?
Jason Eric Taylor, you wrapped my mugs in toilet paper? It's not even the good stuff.
But never mind that. So without further ado, let's jump into the 3 C's of moving with board games. What, you've never heard of the 3 C's of board games? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's culling, consolidating, and containing. So first up is culling. One popular option is to grab each item, and if it doesn't spark joy, then get rid of it. Or you can use one of the following principles that I use to decide what games I would get rid of. So I ask myself the following questions. Is this a game that's easy to find somewhere else that if I really want to get it back, I could get it back again? Or maybe it's just something that my friend or family that's not moving with us, they really loved. Maybe I could gift it to them. Do I have a game that does this better? Maybe I'm more apt to want to play the other one versus this one. Consolidation. Whether the cost of your move is by weight or by space, it's probably finally time to consolidate all those expansion boxes into one spot. Spock? Into Spock. Consolidating. Whether the cost of your move is by weight or by space, it's probably time to finally consolidate all those expansion boxes into one box and ditch that insert that only holds the base game. Now, this might require an intervention or some kind of trust exercise, but it'll be well worth it when you have more space for more games in your new location. However, if you feel obligated to take those empty expansion boxes with you, then maybe the option here is to use them to pack up and secure your other valuables. No, not Grandma's crystals. More games. See, you can use your larger boxes to keep all of your card games and smaller box games together. Containing. Lastly is packing up your games. If the games you decide to keep are only going to get destroyed, then what's the point of moving them, right? So let's talk about how to best pack your games and some simple tips to give your games its best chance of survival. So I just did the unboxing video for Sentinels of the Multiverse, the Collector's Edition box, and this thing is huge, of course, but one of the challenges I'm going to have now is how do I move this thing across the country without getting it beat up? It's a different animal when you're thinking about having to move everything across country. And now I've got this big old box of something that I kickstarted over 2 years ago. And now I got to figure out what to do with it. So let's talk about 4 thoughts here. Choosing a size, cushion, corners, and closing the gaps. Choosing a size is important, but is to taste for some folks. I think if you're packing up a large and unwieldy game, then you might need some larger boxes. In addition, if you have a lot of smaller games that didn't make the cut to put in with larger games to fill in the gaps, which I'll talk about later, then using a smaller box to put a bunch of smaller games into might do the trick. Now, in my humble opinion, I think that the medium-sized boxes are the best. For one, they can handle a decent amount of normal-sized games. Letter B, they are easier to carry. and Roman numeral 3, the weight and size make it easier to stack up in a trailer. So let's talk about cushioning. During the transport, there is surprisingly a great amount of friction between boxes. This comes from the swaying back and forth of a trailer and a train, or the shaking of a trailer being pulled down the road by a truck. Therefore, it's important to take the time to put cushioning down on the bottom and on the top of the box. Otherwise, you risk the games getting rubbed against the walls of the box and damaging the veneer of the boxes.
So one of the things you got to remember about all this is that there's a lot of shaking going on. Not a song. Anyway, but you can see how all of this right here, that there was a lot of rubbing, because a lot of shaking, and then this truck or this setup here actually ended up on a rail yard, so it kept shaking back and forth. So you got to pay attention to that. You can kind of see a little bit of it here as it kind of rubbed together. So something to think about as you're moving your stuff.
Now let's talk about corners. Corners of board games are typically the most vulnerable, and just like the corners of your baseball cards, you want to keep them in mint condition. So putting down a protective layer in those corners is really going to do the best to try to keep them in great shape and those corners safe. So let's talk about closing the gaps. Unless you are a Tetris master and have calculated the space within your moving boxes down to the cubic centimeter, then you're going to have games in your box. Of course you're going to have games in your box. Now let's talk about closing the gaps. Unless you are a Tetris master and have calculated the space within your moving boxes down to the cubic centimeter, well then you're going to have gaps in your box. You want to make sure that these gaps are closed, because if you don't fill them with something like paper to protect them, the moving box might cave in from having a void there when you go to set something else on top of it or to press things on either side of it. Moving 3,000 miles across the country was one of the hardest things that I've ever done. As I packed away each game, I was reminded of moments that stick out with friends and family. How we vanquished that last troll from destroying our castle. Or how we changed history and stopped Hitler. Or how John swore to me that he wasn't a spy, and it turned out that he was a no good, low down, yellow bellied, dirty, rotten scoundrel of a spy, and I trust him at my own peril. I didn't say I enjoyed every memory. Now, with every game I packed away, it continued to bring back a flood of memories. And I wondered what new memories I would make. Would I find new gamers that would build up inside jokes from game experiences? Would I find different games that hit the table more because of affinity towards Euros? And would I finally build up enough new memories that would erase the pain of John betraying me as a no-good, low-down, yellow-bellied, dirty, rotten scoundrel of a spy? You know what you did, John. You know what you did. So how about you? Have you ever moved a board game collection across town, across the country, or even across the world? What kind of tips do you have? Put them in the comments below and let me know what you think about my tips, as well as maybe some tips that you have that might actually improve the chances that someone gets their game collection across the country safely. So if this video moved you, then hit that like button. And if you like other board game related contents or bad puns or maybe dad jokes, then you might be interested in one of these videos over here. Just tap it with your finger, or if you're on your phone, you can use your nose and see if you can punch it right there. Whoa, that's a little, maybe not nose, just keep with the finger from now on.